I love the brand that I've created in Sweet Lionheart, and the product happens to be cake, but I'm really passionate about creating those feelings. And it doesn't have to be from the physical experience of the brand, but also potentially from like just looking at it, like interacting with the brand on social media or online courses. It's all about creating this nice feeling. We all just want to feel nice.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. Today we have a guest on the show and we are speaking to Nikki Symons. She started her professional career out in the design industry. She worked in the interaction design space, worked for Zana Products, Hello Computer, and then she started dabbling a little bit in baking, which you might find odd, but we'll find out a little bit more soon. And currently, she owns and runs a business called Sweet Lionheart. Now, if you go look at the photos of Sweet Lionheart, they make bespoke cakes. And when I say bespoke, I mean art pieces. These things you do not want to eat. You want to frame them if you can, preserve them. But Nikki, I'm so excited to speak about food and cake.
I haven't had my dinner yet. Thanks for having me, guys.
Welcome on the show. I must say, I was really hoping by this time I would be living in Cape Town so that I could actually order one of your cakes and be sitting and eating it while talking to you, because I just feel like that would be a full sensory experience.
I feel like now that you'll be coming to Cape Town after this conversation, we'll have way more to talk about. So
definitely. I'm like trying to think ahead next week. Which occasions qualify a good proper cake? Is it my arrival in Cape Town? Is it just a casual Friday?
Your arrival in Cape Town warrants a cake, definitely.
I agree. All right, but maybe to kick us off, can you give us a brief overview of maybe just a bit of your background in your career and what you're doing right now? Well, not right now. I mean, your day-to-day job.
Awesome. I could definitely do that. So I started off after school studying graphic design. I specifically went to Vega and I did multimedia design, focusing on digital design, basically. So it was a bit of web, a little bit of motion, but all kind of encompassing design. We didn't do print or TV stuff, billboards or anything. It was just mainly digital. So after completing my degree, I went into advertising. I did a very short stint, which is also where I actually met my husband. So something good came from it. But I did my short stint in advertising and I moved on to work for an online food magazine where I just fell in love with food photography and food styling. Because we were a really small team, we were creating the content for the magazine as well. So I was given the opportunity to kind of play, and under the guidance of my boss and the team, I was able to just basically, there's a level of self-taught kind of coming in there. And I also just started to reconnect with my love for food. I grew up cooking with my mom. I never baked with her. So working at the online food magazine, it's called Crush. It still exists today in a different kind of format now. But working for Crush, I was able to explore other avenues that were creative expressions for me. And when I was working at Crush, I started a food blog, which allowed me to kind of photograph and style content that I wanted to create. So obviously for work, I was doing stuff that was based on a brief, and this was just a really nice kind of just a freedom to create situation. And through that experience, I just found that my love for photography and styling was just really like kind of snowballing, and I started to, it was just an amazing space to be in, to take design and my love for food and just kind of smush it all together in this blog that I was also doing with my mom. So there was an element of storytelling as well. And I subsequently left the online food magazine to go work for a friend of mine that was Zana Products, and to be her graphic designer. So I kind of went from design food to design again, and working at Zana, obviously it was completely like not related to food, but what we did do was, because I had this major passion for anything food, I convinced Robin that it would be a good idea to do recipes on the Zana blog, because the Zana blog was quite a big part of that business as well, just to, you know, from an SEO perspective. And Zana, even though it is product based, it's a lifestyle brand. So to bring in the elements of food kind of spoke to that whole lifestyle element. And I was able to, again, continue playing with photography and styling for the Zana blog. And I eventually got to a point where I really missed being very actively involved in the food side of things. So coming from the food magazine, I was conceptualizing recipes and shoot styling, mood boards, propping and everything, like very often, and like that was my main kind of focus. And moving away from it, I actually started to miss it more. And that's when I decided that, okay, cool, I'm working this job at Zana, which I really love. The team is amazing. It's a small business. It's female owned. Like Robin and her mom are amazing. I learned so much from them as business owners. But I realized that from a long-term perspective, I wasn't sure where I was going to fit in, and I really missed being in the kitchen. So that's when I decided to do the part-time pastry course at Silwood, and I was able to do that for an entire year while working for Robin and her mom at Zana, which was amazing that they gave me the opportunity to actually structure my work day like that. So I was working for them basically full-time, but just taking one day off a week, and then for an entire year I was going to chef school, where I was learning the tricks of the trade and how to basically be a pastry chef. And that's kind of like how I got to where I am now, and off the back of pastry school started my business, where I now do design, food, photography, styling, everything that kind of got me to this point. So that's what I'm doing now, running a business.
That's amazing. So I've got a bit of a question, and maybe we can try and roll it back a little bit, because it seems like food has been, you know, a theme for quite a while, but it was really only later on that you sort of made the decision to sort of turn it into like a real business and sort of maybe try and make something out of it. But at what point did you start to suspect that maybe this is something that you wanted to take like really seriously? Because look, I don't think it's every old designer who just decides, yes, this graphic design thing is cool, but I'm going to take a course on pastry, on baking and pastry. So like at what point did it start to actually did you start to think about this like in a serious manner?
I think for me, that was in 2014 while I was working at Zana as a designer. It was maybe 9 months after leaving the online food magazine. And my husband, then it was my boyfriend, we went to Europe, and on this trip I kind of, I don't know, as one does when you're away from your general life experiences, you start to settle into like your subconscious basically, and just experiencing the food and kind of being in a space that I didn't really it's just unfamiliar spaces, but they feel kind of I don't know, I love new experiences and just being in environments where it's unknown, and being in that space for some reason, being removed from my daily, I was just like, I fell in love with this Turkish bread, okay?
We all fall in love with bread.
This is what happened. I fell in love with this Turkish bread in Turkey, and then I came back from that holiday and I started a Turkish bread stand at the Ranyazok City Farm Market in Cape Town because I was just obsessed with this freaking bread. That's basically the short story of my journey. But I went on this holiday, and on this holiday I was like, I want to do something for myself. And then I was eating this bread and I was just obsessed with this bread. And then Ross and I came back and I went to the Molson market to find these golden platters that I could display my Turkish bread that I don't even know how to make properly yet. But I just came back and I had this complete obsession to learn how to make this bread and sell this bread to people because I enjoyed it so much. I think also it's a situation of if you eat something or drink something in a certain environment, your environment makes it taste better or worse, depending on the situation. And I think just how I felt when I had it, I wanted to be able to give that to other people. And the bread just happened to be that thing. So I want to say that was kind of the catalyst for me actually making that decision to go into or to start a food business. Yes, it changed. The business changed. And I now do cake. But for me, it was business started around a feeling. And it just happened to be food. And I've subsequently over the past 6 months really realized that I love the brand that I've created in Sweet Lionheart, and the product happens to be cake, but I'm really passionate about creating those feelings. And it doesn't have to be from the physical experience of the brand, but also potentially from just looking at it, interacting with the brand on social media or online courses. It's all about creating this just nice feeling. We all just want to feel nice.
I really want to get hold of this bread because it seems to be quite life-changing, literally.
It's basically like a bagel that is encrusted in sesame seeds, but it's chewy and it's so good. And it goes with everything.
I'm there.
Jams and cheeses and
I'm a sucker for sesame seeds.
It's so good.
I want to, seeing as you're now explaining a little bit about, Sweet Lionheart for you is very much based on a feeling, an experience that you have with this brand. Can you maybe also just tell us, especially for the people that don't know, what Sweet Lionheart does, and if you had to describe the brand and what it stands for, what the vision is for the company? I just want to hear more about the cakes.
You just want to eat the cake. No, joking. Yes. So Sweet Lionheart is an online-based bake shop in Cape Town, and we create cakes and baked goods for all occasions, from birthdays, weddings, baby showers, corporate events, pretty much you name it. And the focus has always been to create beautiful things that taste amazing, and just to kind of tap into those special occasions and really elevate a special occasion that is already amazing. And as an online-based business, so coming from a space that isn't food industry related, I wanted to create a business that kind of broke the rules of the food industry. I wanted to be able to work on my own time, which is very, very uncommon for the space. Food industry is the grind. You're working when everyone else is having their Christmas dinners and their New Year's parties, you in the kitchen busy making amazing food for people. So starting Sweet Lionheart, I kind of wanted to be able to do it on my own terms. As the business has grown, it's been harder to kind of keep with that because there's a level of expectation. But the core of the business has always been to try and advocate balance as much as possible for myself, for the team. And we don't always get it right, but we are hyper aware of trying to create this environment that is very different to how the food industry currently operates. It's an all-female team, which for me, I'm very passionate about, particularly in a male-dominated industry, shining the light on amazing female artistry, basically. You know, the goals that what they're doing in my kitchen it's pure art. So it's kind of just a combination of all things pink and pretty but not like your typical girly kind of way. It's like, it's strong. It's,
bold.
Yeah. And we, as an online based business, we're doing pre-orders. We went from a zero waste business to now having a retail space, which has been quite new for us. But it's also a multifaceted business. It's very much me in a business format because I get bored quickly, so I need things to keep me busy and keep me going. So we've got our online orders, we've got our workshops. There's an education aspect to the business that I'm very passionate about. So it's teaching in person, teaching online. So we've got global reach as well. So for me, it's always been about building a brand that is an industry leader globally, basically.
That's amazing. So there are quite a few things for us to sort of like take apart and sort of explore there. But there's something that I'd like to go into more from like the aesthetic side of things, because I think something that's been interesting for me about how you've spoken about what you're doing so far is that it's almost like the baking and the food is like a result of something else. It's almost like there's more. And I mean, you know, for the people listening, you might think that like the thing that's most impressive is, you know, the taste of the cake and all that. But as soon as somebody goes into your Instagram page or really any sort of interaction with your brand, one of the things that really stands out to me is if all of that content was actually like not real, not edible, and it was just about the aesthetics of what a person is seeing, that would be still make it for a convincing brand. And I think that's one of the things that really struck me when I first engaged with your brand. It's almost like the presentation of what you're doing is just as important as the end product. And I think especially as a fellow designer, it's something that I can really appreciate, especially like the work that goes into that. Like, you know, I could see just the aesthetics of what you're doing being almost like a whole separate facet of the business. And sort of a little bit further on that, and maybe this is something that you could maybe comment on a little bit, but how did it sort of happen that because what you might typically find is a business that sort of is in a space other than just digital content tends to sort of focus on their product first, to develop their product and kind of like establish themselves as a business, and then almost layer marketing on top and content creation. Like, is there a reason why this almost seems to have been something that's happened at the same time as the development of the baking and the actual food product itself?
Yeah, you've worded that question in a way that's been very like kind of not reflective for me, but it's that exact topic is something that I've been grappling with a lot recently, because when I started the business 6 years ago almost, was I basically started it because I was posting what I was making in chef school for that entire year on my Instagram account. So it was born off the back of content creation. And the reason one of the big things that happened was I was documenting this process, and for me, I truly love creating something but creating content around it. For me, it wasn't about the actual subject that I was making. It was about the end result, which was the content. But I started getting requests for the stuff that was in the content, you know? So I was just like, okay, well, if people want what I'm making and I can create content around it, then surely it's a win-win situation, you know?
Yeah.
And it's a little bit of a chicken and an egg situation. So cake just happens to have been there at that point in time. And I think that I also found it was a very interesting medium for me to take my love for design and creation from a digital space, which I've been working on all the time, photography, web design, just design in general, and then put it into a physical space. So it's kind of like, I don't know, it's quite a complex thing, but I don't know if that answers your question, but it's a very weird one. But for me,
definitely,
like I love creating. I've loved the process of creating a brand, and I am just so happy that the brand that I've created can make other people happy through the actual product. So it ticks quite a few boxes, not just for me.
And I don't want to make an assumption, you know, with all my business expertise, but you could almost reflect and think maybe that's what contributed to making it such a successful business and helping you where you are now. Firstly, because you weren't product pushing, if I had to use that term, as opposed to rather focusing on the overall experience that you're selling and what are all the facets of that brand instead of just focusing solemnly on the product. And a question I want to ask is, you know, obviously you're passionate about cakes, but do you feel that because it didn't start from this extreme love for baking and cake making, that it kind of allowed you to step a little bit back away from the product to focus on the brand more, as opposed to someone who's just, you know, so in love with the product when they start a business?
Definitely. I think that has certainly happened in this case. I feel like if I was more obsessed with the cake itself, I wouldn't have been able to have that kind of bird's eye view of how I can take this business and turn it into something that, I mean, we're at that stage now where we've got a global following, you know, like I've been able to, along with my team, create this brand that is like, it's really strong. And I think that is just because it's a collaboration of everyone's ideas and strengths. I am not the person that is going to be able to perfectly pipe a cake for you. Like, I would love to be that person. I want to be able to do all of it, but I can't be everything for my business. So it's also understanding that my passion is to build a brand, build a narrative around it, build this lifestyle around it, and then getting the right people in place to help me kind of realize this dream. And I do think that it was actually a conversation that I had with somebody last week. They said to me that, and not to like in a derogatory kind of way, but they were like, basically, if somebody had to take your business, take your brand, they can reverse engineer the operations of your business, but they cannot, like, you can't just make another Sweet Lion Heart, you know, like that is 6 years of like consideration around a feeling that we're trying to create in this brand, where what we're doing, there's amazing people in Cape Town, there's amazing people in South Africa, around the world that do cake, but we've been able to create a brand around it, and I mean there's a story around it, exactly. So I think that there are so many people on this planet that make cake so much better than what we do, but we've just been able to package it in this little neat box with a little bow, you know? So, which I'm very grateful for, because it's been an amazing experience to be able to actually take this thing and grow it into something that people love as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely amazing. And there's something sort of, I think both you, Nikki, and Steph have kind of touched on a little bit that I think is super important, especially for people either in the marketing space or people who are running a business and kind of like have marketing as an aspect. And sort of, Steph, you were sort of talking a little bit about the fact that they're not really trying to product push, and there's sort of this level of perspective you get when you're not really as attached to the brand, and well, not the brand, to the end product. Sorry. And I think it's something that especially if you're in advertising, you sort of encounter this often. You kind of have this new client, and you come up with this concept, and they're like, make the logo bigger, make sure my cake is exactly angled at this way, and they're so focused on their specific perspective on how they feel about their product that they forget that what you're instead trying to do is tell a story, and you need to almost be married to the story of what you're doing rather than the actual physical product. Mm-hmm. And I think especially for a person who's, and maybe it sort of is something that has come from your sort of marketing background, but something that's been also interesting is that it sort of seems like you, and maybe you can comment on this, would you say you've kind of had like an entrepreneurial side to yourself from early on? Because you sort of mentioned the fact that you went to Turkey, you fell in love with this bread, and your first instinct was essentially to find a way to share it with people. And it wasn't like, I'm going to make this Turkish bread for myself and enjoy it at home on my own. It was sort of like this instinct to just like share it. Can you maybe speak to that a little bit?
I don't, it's definitely not something that came from like a young age. Like I wasn't the kid like with my lemonade stand or anything like that. I was not that person. I definitely think that it's something that's come with time. I feel like I'm maybe a little bit of a hybrid. I wouldn't say that I, like, maybe as I get older and I kind of go through this experience a little bit more, I will be able to say like, yes, I'm a proper entrepreneur. I've got this. Like I have this desire to kind of, take what I make and put it out into the world and have people buy into this idea. I think I'm maybe a combination of an artist and an entrepreneur, because in the sense where I like creating things and putting it out there, and I want people to come to me because they want what I've got. I don't like selling. I don't like a hard sell.
Yeah.
Like it completely destroys my soul. Where like, and that's kind of, it's a weird space to be in when you're trying to sell a product as well. So that's also where I think the dynamic has come from, having this brand that the product isn't pushed so much. It's because I personally don't like doing that. So yeah, I think there's definitely a sense of entrepreneurship, but it's not like that die hard, like I'm probably unemployable, let's just be honest. But I don't know if I'd be able to work for someone. I just want to like kind of make stuff and just put it out there, and I want people to think it's amazing and buy it from me or ask me to make like a version for them. But like there's always a sense of creativity that comes like from deep within, and I just want to put it out there. It's like I've said before to my husband that I wonder what it must be like to be a person that doesn't naturally gravitate towards creation, and you have this urge to make something. Like, where does that energy go? And I think that for me, I will always, I act on these creative impulses. I'll make the Turkish bread. I had a tassel company, guys. I literally made tassels. Like, before I started my braid company, like, I wanted to make stuff and just, like, have people buy it, put it in...
Share it.
Yeah, share it, exactly. So, and I mean, it's like, tassels, what the hell? But it's like this creative urge that I'm like, I believe, I almost blindly believe that I can make it work. Like somebody in the world needs this.
And I think that's so important. And there's something that specifically I want to touch on a little bit, because I think as creative people, that sort of idea of selling is one that we generally just don't feel comfortable with. Like there's this like niggling
Money
feeling
and-
inside
yeah.
when you need to like actually try to make that sale. But on the flip side, I think something that's really important that you sort of highlighted, but also that you sort of express through what you're doing, is that it doesn't have to be about selling. Like you can start a business simply out of a sheer passion to want to create. Now, not to say that it's easy, and also not to say that it's for everybody, but I think there is a group or like a demographic of creative people who let their fear of selling hold them back from expression.
Yeah.
Because they're the select few who can sort of, work a job and sort of in their spare time just have their form of expression, and they don't feel like they need to share it with the world. But I think there are also people who the sharing with the world is a part of the expression. And their fear of selling sort of prevents them from taking that step forward. And so I wanted to like maybe ask, and it might not be so easy to kind of come up with an answer off the cuff, but like how did you sort of overcome that sort of uncomfortability with being with doing the hard sell? Because when you sort of start out, you can lean a lot more in the content creation and stay within the art. But and I'm assuming here, it sort of gets to the point where you sort of have to bite the bullet and maybe get a little bit better at making the sell.
Yeah. So my solution now is to get a social media manager to do the social media and kind of like do the hard sell. No, I'm joking, but that is literally what I'm going to do now, because I'm getting to that point where I have other things that I'm focusing on in the business, and I still need somebody to, like, social media is the main marketing tool that we use. So I do need somebody to kind of like sit on that and really start to push it a little bit more. So I'm outsourcing.
Smart.
Because I honestly, it's easier. Like, I would be able to hard sell somebody else's business more so than I can hard sell my own.
Yeah.
It's weird, but that's just, it's a little bit of it's fear. It's imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
It's like all those things put together, and like, yeah, I just feel like people who are buying into it will enjoy it more if somebody else told them to buy it than me. I don't know why. It makes no difference because it's still going to come from the brand. But yeah, outsource. My answer.
I have an interesting follow-up question that kind of not contradicts what Alfie was asking, but I guess it's the other side. So for me, I think, I've met so many creatives, and if you think about anyone pursuing a professional creative career, you are usually at the disposal of whoever you work for. You are helping create someone else's brand. You are helping creating someone else's product, making someone else money. And I have met so many creatives who get to a point where they want to stop doing that so badly. They want to create something for themselves. They want to stop getting feedback and, criticism and changes that they don't believe in from someone else. And generally that output is, let me start my own business. And naturally, creatives have good ideas. That's why they are creatives. So there's not a lack of ideas to get started. But one thing I do want to get you to share your experience on is starting a business is not for everyone. And I think especially as creatives, because we are so passionate about creating something, we think that starting a business would still fuel that passion or still fulfill and keep us satisfied creatively, or that creative expression. But sometimes that's the opposite, because business comes with a lot of admin and a lot of business stuff. So what has your journey been as a creative starting a business? At what point did you need to step away from creative expression? How involved are you? Or are you still feeling fulfilled in that creative aspect? Or just, when I don't want listeners to be naive and go, let's start a business now because I'm creative. I have ideas. Build a little bit more of a realistic outlook on your personal experience.
So I actually have a really, really good story for this situation. I am not great at taking a brief. Okay, like I've become better, but I was always like, okay, cool. So you want pink, orange, and green with this candy and that flower and everything, and I'm like, okay, cool. So that's exactly what you want. You draw it for me. You tell me what you want, and then so I had this client that exactly to a T, like what sweeties she wants on her cake. And when it came to the day where we actually had to put this cake together, I was like, oh hell no, girl, you're not getting that cake.
Perfect to run a business.
I changed the whole brief. And then we had it dropped off. Shame, the lady was quite nice, but she was like, it's beautiful, but it's not what I asked for. Because honestly, I was like, I know better. I truly believe that I knew better and I knew what she needed. So that was like an example of like, I'm going to creatively express myself.
Exactly.
But it was just not the right time. And I learned from that. I was just like, okay, cool. This lady was not happy. Yes, I thought it looked beautiful. I got a really nice photo. I got amazing content around this cake. But again, it was not what the client wanted. So yes, I'm working for myself. I have a level of freedom of expression, but I still have to fulfill briefs. There are so many times where we receive briefs where we're like, oh, okay, no, it's not our style, and then we'll try and like change it, or we'll turn them away. And sometimes we just like, fuck it, we're gonna do it, because like work is work as well. And then there's just like a level of just closing your eyes and just doing it, I do think that I've had to find the creative expression in other ways in my business, small ways, from like coming up with promotions around specific occasions like Easter and like Father's Day and Mother's Day. Like there's room to creatively express, whether it's through systems that we put into place in the kitchen, because that's also creative, like numbers are creative as well. Like people have their different things that they would see as their creative expression. And like I went from a design perspective when it comes to doing mailers and doing any like digital flyers and swipe up content on our social stories and stuff. That is all an opportunity for me to creatively express myself, because I'm setting the rules. I'm not, I don't have anybody that's telling me, no, you can't use that shade of pink with that font on that background. Like if I want to make my logo red, I will make my logo red on a pink background, If my CI, it's not in my CI, but I will do it because I can. But I won't make Thani's cake the way that I wanted it, because I've learned she's a paying customer, and I need to kind of honor the brief. So yeah, it's finding creative expression in other ways. It changes. Like sometimes you have to do what you're told, supposedly, and other times you can just, one day I'll feel creative to redesign packaging or labeling or whatever. And other days I don't actually want to do it and I can outsource it or whatever. It's just like you have more freedom to do what you want to do, but in the same breath, I also don't do as much of why I started the business, because once you start a business, you need to wear all the hats. You need to be everything for your business. So creative expression, it's kind of like, I've found it is going in a little bit of a like bell graph kind of situation for me. I started off doing what I really wanted to do, and I started the business. You run the business and you have to be everything for it. And then you kind of move further and further away from that initial kind of reason. And then you either completely fall off and you're like, cool, I'm out. I'm too far away from the original purpose. Or you're like, okay, I need to turn the boat around and I need to get back to why I started this thing. And then you start maybe peeling away layers, getting rid of stuff, employing people to fill in the gaps where you maybe fall short, or where you realize, okay, cool, I've taken it to this level, I can't take it any further, I need to get somebody in, and then you can start working your way back. But it's also up to you to kind of, I guess, set those boundaries in place to be able to get back to your creative expression. So,
yeah. That's I think an important thing, and the sort of two things that I was that I'd like to touch on. I think the first, and sort of what you described, one of the ways I like to think about it is like being the artist versus being the designer. Essentially, like the designer is a person who sort of receives the problem and sort of uses their skill set and their knowledge to sort of address it and come up with a solution that fits what that problem is. But then the artist almost is a person who sort of goes within themselves and explores their feelings, their emotions, their thoughts and ideas, and expresses that. And so they almost, in a sense, don't have control over the outcome in like from a like a conscious perspective. It's more an expression of something that's inside them. And I think often we go in and we even maybe get recognition for the artistic side of what we're doing. Like it's what creates the amazing posts, the amazing content, and it's what gets people interested in us. And funnily enough, it's even what gets us the beginning of the business. It helps actually make the sale because it's so organic, it's so natural, and it's so true to who you are. But then when the client comes, they're like, they don't want to get the art piece from you. They've got this idea in their mind, and they've got this problem that they'd like you to solve. And so in a funny way, the thing that gets you the business is not the thing that keeps you the business in a sense. And I guess it's a difficult thing to juggle. And also I think something that you mentioned that's really important, and I'd almost want to highlight it a little bit more, is sort of that stage when things have kicked off and now people are like, there are eyes on you and there are people who are interested in what you're doing. And you almost need to make the decision to either sort of step away from your original purpose for the sake of growth and for the sake of expansion, or, not grow, take that, whether it's opening that next shop or opening that next line of products, and instead sort of maybe leave some of the money on the table for the sake of your creative expression. And I think it needs to be said that it's okay to leave the money on the table, and it's okay to stay true to your initial creative purpose, because it's hard. It's hard to say I'm not gonna take the money. I'm not gonna change
Scale.
what I'm doing for the sake of scale. Exactly. And I don't know if you've got any thoughts or like experiences like along your journey where you sort of either had to make that decision, or whether it's something that you're thinking about now, because I mean that's also possible.
I think that's for me what has been kind of a bit of, not a saving grace, but something that has allowed me to not be more for my business, but basically go through this whole process of moving further away from from your purpose, but being able to continue and push through. Because for me, my purpose has kind of, I didn't think about it this way when I started it, but it was building a brand. And that kind of can shift and move along with the journey a bit more than what it would have been if my purpose was to make, like me personally, making cake, being in the kitchen and creating, my expression has been the brand, where somebody who might start a similar business, they might want to be in the kitchen making the actual stuff, amazing. Like if that's what you want, then yes. But if I had been that person in my situation, I don't know whether I would have continued, because I would have moved away from the original purpose. And I think my purpose has kind of shifted and grown with me, basically, where now I'm getting to the stage where I'm like, have I gotten my brand to a point where I can take it now? You know, like, have I taken it to where I can, and is it something that somebody else needs to now take and fly with, because I've made this platform for people to kind of continue to live their purpose, if it's like creating cakes and making amazing, beautiful treats, or do I continue to try and find purpose in growing this brand, in it, you know, continue to grow it, you know? I had a really nice analogy from somebody that I consider to be a mentor. She actually chatted to me when I had just started my business. I came there with my very first product, and I sat with this lady at this coffee shop, and I was just like, this is what I'm making. And she's like, cool, it's amazing. A couple of tips on costing and, you know, how to basically the stuff of running the business that I knew nothing about, which is the financial and all of those things. Very, very important. And I'm now at like the other side of 6 years, and I'm like, I've made this thing. I don't know where to from here, you know, like I don't know what more I can be for my brand. Like, I love it. I love what I've made. And she just kind of said to me, she was like, you've laid a golden egg, basically. You know, it's like that's the goose and the golden egg situation, where to be able to create a brand that people buy into is really difficult. Not everyone can do that. And I'm very grateful for the fact that I've been able to do it, because for me that is what Sweet Lionheart is. Whether it is a tiny little golden egg or a big one, it's just it's something that I'm very proud of and very grateful to have been able to make. But now I'm like, what do I do with this thing? So this is where I'm currently at, you know. It's like I just don't know what to do with it. Is it going to go fraught? It's going to go off. Or do I just keep going, you know, like, because for me, building the brand is what I love doing. Working with my team is what I love doing. But now I need to try and realign with what I want for myself personally, you know. And that's kind of my journey now. So maybe we can have another conversation, like, I don't know, a year's time, and see where I'm at.
Definitely.
And see where that tassel business is going.
I don't know if I'm going to start that one up again, But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that answers your question, but...
Definitely.
Yeah.
You shared a bit of experience earlier around, you know, sometimes we have to sacrifice what we want for what the client wants, because essentially you are running a business and you are selling products. Now, a lot of the time, creatives can be not possessive, but we do find the things we make, we can be a bit protective over it, right? Because we do have this vision in mind that we are trying to create. And sometimes for the sake of wanting to manifest or actually make this vision that we have in our mind tangible, we avoid asking feedback or advice or sharing, because that might deter us, or that might change the route to get to the vision I want. Now, obviously, as a business, you can't take that route. You can't not ask feedback or look at the feedback that you're receiving, not only from your clients, but the people you work with. And as a creative, you know, running a business, what has your experience been to let go of what that vision is that you want, to also help grow and essentially what support or feedback have you actively went to seek out as a creative to help this business, and what has the impact been? Have you grown to become more receptive to receiving feedback, to sharing, to getting criticism and help?
I definitely have for all of those. So I'm going to start off with feedback. That it is so important. It really, really is. To not see it as a personal attack, I think, should always be at the forefront of your mind. You need to understand that's obviously you need to look at where it's coming from, but feedback has enabled me to change things that we do or do better every single time. So I don't take feedback lightly. I used to completely melt down. My whole body would go into shock, and I'd just be like, oh my gosh, someone's not happy, or staff are not enjoying X, Y, and Z, or too much overtime, or there's bad dynamic in the kitchen, or whatever. Anything that it's confrontation and friction, basically. But it is so important to move through that uncomfortability to be able to get to the other side and have grown from that point. So for me, taking feedback is exceptionally important, whether it's from my staff on the way that I don't know, say something or try to control situations too much, or if a customer is unhappy with something, taking that feedback is exceptionally important. It's very difficult. Some days might be easier than others, depending on how close you are to burnout. But it's key to growth, being able to take that feedback. And then asking for help is definitely something that it takes practice as well. You can't, if it's doesn't come naturally to you to want to ask people to guide you and assist you or ask for opinions. I still struggle with it. I'm much better at it, because I feel like if I ask for help, that I need to do something to get that help, basically. It's an exchange. But I think that you need to also open up yourself to the fact that people want to help you. If you're a nice person and you're passionate about what you're doing, your support structure, for one, they are there to support you, but asking for help and asking for advice, it's not transactional. And if it is a transactional relationship, then I would step back, try and find help somewhere else, guys. But it's important, being able to lean on people, being able to speak to people. I'm at that point where I will talk to people, people that I don't even know from a bar or so, about my business things and my issues and stuff. I know she sat next to a guy today, and he was just talking about, he says I'm not religious, but the voice of God is guiding me through my business. And I was like, oh yeah, that's like me, but my intuition. I call it my intuition, and being able to speak to people and just understand that you're not alone. And that's where help can come in. It doesn't necessarily have to be somebody physically helping you out of a tough spot, or it can just be a couple of words with a stranger, just because you opened yourself up to a conversation, and they might be able to give you some insight into the situation that you're in that can just be a different perspective and help you get out of it, So help comes in very many different forms, and I think that you need to be receptive to it. It takes practice, especially if it doesn't come naturally to you to ask for help. If you want to be that person, if you want to be the savior for everyone, it's very difficult to get help from other people. But I think if for the success of your business and for your own mental well-being, it's really important to kind of lean in on that.
Yeah, no, definitely. So So I've got a bit of a lighter question. Like what for you, in your opinion, has been like your cornerstone project? Whether it's because you enjoyed it the most, it was the most interesting, it resulted in the strangest cake. Like what has been like, I don't know, for you, one of the moments that sort of like made you sort of like sit back and appreciate what you're doing?
I'm going to be very boring and tell you that there's not one moment. So for me, the times where I really appreciate what I'm doing is where I actually take a moment to take stock of everything that I've done with my team. So it's those days where I'm trying to clear out my Dropbox and I'm moving things around. I'm looking for content to send off to like, I don't know, a publication, or I need like old content for a mailer, to actually go back and be like, fuck, we've done so much. We've done amazing stuff, to actually look at it as a whole picture, you know? I can't say that there's one standout project for me that I'm just like, that was amazing. I absolutely loved it. Like, there's just too many options to choose from.
That's amazing though.
I would say that the creation of our online school has been something that I'm exceptionally proud of. Because if you look at that content, it's all made by us. Okay, we have a videographer that's works with us to kind of do the filming, but the lessons are written by us. We do all the copywriting, we do all the like PDFs around the classes. Like we've created amazing content around teaching, and I'm exceptionally proud of that aspect of our business. So yeah, and it's that bridge between our kitchen and the kitchen of a home baker or another baker across the world that is inspired by our work, you know. It's a way for them to kind of connect with us, but not being in the same space. So like, I love our online school.
I think we're sort of reaching the sort of closing stage of this, but I just want you to maybe speak a tiny bit more about the online school, like maybe just in case there's someone out there that's sort of like interested in sort of picking up baking or whatever it is that they might find in there. Can you tell us a little bit about, you know, what some of the course content might be, and maybe also where they might find it?
Sure. So our online school is hosted on Teachable, which is an American-based platform. So it is in dollars, but it's anyone across the world with a credit card basically can buy our classes. It is all pre-recorded content, so you can go through it in like your own time, luxury of whatever your day is like. It's not, there's no limits to how quickly you need to get through the content. So some people might learn faster, some people might go through it a little bit slower. But there is various types of content. So we have like our video classes, and then we have our PDF classes. So PDF classes are a little bit more affordable. It's kind of less intensive information, still very elaborate, but less intensive information on like technical aspects of cake decorating. The main focus is cake decorating, where the video is a lot more kind of deep diving into the content. Obviously, we also have more room to explain stuff because of the video aspect of it. But it's, the cornerstone is cake decorating. There's a little bit of baking in there, but we essentially are teaching how to recreate specific cake designs and teaching techniques, whether it's working with isomalt, which is a type of like sugar craft, doing the piping techniques that we do on our Victorian inspired regal piping cakes. So it's very design orientated, but we enable students to learn a technique and make it their own. And it's for various levels of people who have baked before, who haven't. We've got very entry level classes where it's like just the basics, and that's always a great place to start. But the online school is found through our website on our workshops tab. You can basically navigate to our online school from there. Or you can just search Sweet Lionheart Teachable and you'll find it. But yeah, we've got quite a few courses on there. It's lifetime access, which is also really cool because not all online e-learning platforms allow for lifetime access. So yeah, and also like once people sign up to our class, we encourage them to email us with questions about the course content. That's also something that I always say about our physical workshops. If you come to one of our workshops, you basically a lifelong friend, and you can just email us any questions you might have. If I can answer them, I will. But we are very passionate about creating our community around the shared love for cake. And yeah, I think our Instagram page has been testament to that. If you look at all the comments and everything on a lot of our posts, a lot of it is like bakers across the world. And for me, that's really awesome, because you know what it's like as a creative. You're like, this is my idea. I'm going to keep all of this information and how to myself. And being able to share your process and your approach and your techniques with other people that do exactly what you do. Like for me, it's been a really cool journey to see how receptive people are to that, as opposed to being a little closed book.
Amazing. So you hear that, guys. If you would like to sort of explore a little bit about cake decoration and sort of choose that to be your form of creative expression, you know where to go. But maybe before we close off, Nikki, can you tell us where can people find you? What are the links and all of the beautiful places where you sort of express your creativity?
So our website is sweetlionheart.com. If you're in Cape Town, you can order your cake online. Otherwise, we are on Instagram as sweet.lionheart, and then also Facebook as sweet.lionheart. And yeah, I think that's about it. I don't do Twitter. I don't do all the other things.
We will post all the links in the announcement post as well. But yeah, it's been so amazing to hear about your journey as a creative and a business owner. But it's also really amazing to hear the ways in which your company is trying to give back to the community. It's always inspiring, and yeah.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Amazing.
It was lovely to chat to you. Some amazing thought-provoking questions, and yeah, it was just cool to kind of go through the questions in a way that like you almost frame things and put into perspective like scenarios that I'm going through, or like, and I'm sure so many business owners are going through, to like just think about it differently, you know. So thanks for the platform.
It's been a pleasure. And thanks for making the time to chat with us. And for everybody who's taken the time to listen, thank you very much, and we hope you have a wonderful day. And that is a wrap.
Cheers, guys. See you soon.